climbs down from the cab. She stretches, feeling the stiffness in her lower back, then locks the truck and heads inside the diner portion of the truck stop. Has a comfortable, worn-in feel of a place that served road warriors for decades. Photos of trucks and local landscapes lined with paneled walls and the smell of coffee and grilled onions fills the air behind the counter. An old neck looks up. Afternoon, the waitress says with practiced smile as Maggie slides into a booth. Haven't seen you through here before. First time, Maggie confirms, just passing through to Wellington. I'm Betty, the waitress says, pouring coffee without asking. Creams on the table. Cook makes the best meatloaf this side of the Mississippi if you're hungry. Been driving since dawn, Maggie says, warming her hands around the mug. Meatloaf sounds perfect. Betty nods and heads toward the kitchen, leaving Maggie to survey the other patrons. A few scattered truckers hunched over plates, an elderly couple in the corner booth, a local man reading a newspaper at the counter. Normal small town scene until the door swings open. 5 men in leather motorcycle vests enter. Their presence immediately changing the atmosphere. The elderly couple falls silent, and one of the truckers suddenly finds his plate fascinating. The leader, tall, with a meticulously groomed beard and calculating eyes, scans the room before settling his long. Afternoon, the boys. Betty says, her smile tightening. Slightly regular tables open. The leader nods, guiding his group to a corner booth with clear sight lines to both the entrance and Maggie. Their vests bear a patch of snarling wolf's head with the words Warlords. Maggie's meatloaf, her movements efficient, but her eyes wary. Anything else you need, hun? This looks great, thanks. Maggie says, picking up her fork. A lifetime of observation has taught her when to attract attention, and when not to. This moment calls to the an elderly truck driver wearing a faded Route 66 cap catches her eye from 2 booths away. He gives a subtle nod of professional recognition. Maggie returns it with a small smile, understanding the silent communication of the road. We see each other as Maggie finishes her meal. She feels a presence at her table. The leader of the bikers stands too close, invading her space. Deliberately, his 4 companions remain seated, but watch attentively. That big Peterbilt outside yours, he asks, examining her truck keys on the table. Maggie takes a deliberate sip of awful big rig for such a little lady. His eyes gets the job done. Maggie takes a deep breath. She glances at the photo of the young woman and touches it briefly. Not getting dragged into anything today. Julie, she murmurs, her daughter doesn't need more worry. Nursing school is stressful enough without her mother getting into trouble on the road. As Maggie notices Drake and one of his men watching her from the diner entrance in her side, Michael's starting up. Coincidence? Maybe. But Maggie doesn't believe in coincidences. Not after what she's seen back on the highway. Maggie's truck rumbles steadily toward Wellington. The countryside grows more rugged as the road begins to climb into the mountains. Pine forests press close to the asphalt, and the late afternoon sun casts long shadows across the road. In her mirrors, Maggie spots 2 motorcycles gaining on her. They're still distant, but the coincidence puts her on alert. She checks her fuel gauge, 34, full enough to drive straight through without stopping again if needed. She reaches for her CB radio breaker one and ears on this channel over static. Then a voice crackles. To go ahead, Steel Magnolia. This is El Hall, Larry, about 20 miles ahead of you. Just checking road conditions up ahead, Larry. Any issues I should know about? Clear sailing from here to Wellington. You hauling through the night. That affirmative. Got a tight delivery window. Well, watch yourself. This stretch gets mighty. Dark County cut back on road maintenance few years back. When the mill closed over, appreciate the heads up. Steel Magnolia out. Maggie replaces a mic and checks her mirrors again. The motorcycles are closer now, definitely following her. She recognizes the riders from the diner. Her truck round the bend, and Maggie sees a roadside rest area ahead with a couple of other trucks parked. She signals and pulls in, positioning her truck for a quick exit. If needed, the motorcycles slow as they pass the rest area in trance, then continue down the highway. Maggie watches them disappear around the next bend. She steps down from her cab, scanning the area. 2 other truckers are sitting at a picnic table, having coffee from thermoses, when a middle-aged black man with a salt and pepper beard nods and greeting. Trouble on your tail? He asks, just being careful, you local. Maggie responds, her voice neutral, but her posture cautious. Pass through every month, Walter Bennett. She replies, shaking it. You ran into the Warlords, didn't you? Walter asks. And Maggie's expression confirms that they fancy themselves. The unofficial lore around these parts started as a veterans motorcycle club years back, but the new leadership's taken them in a different direction. They mention something about transport security. Maggie says Walter's companion, an older driver with white hair and a weathered face, snorts derisively. That's what they call extortion. These days, they shake down independent drivers' offer protection from problems. They call themselves local. Sheriff's son is one of them Walter ads, makes it complicated they got their hands in most businesses around here, folks. Our scared Maggie frown sounds like you're suggesting I should have paid up no Walter. Says firmly, just saying be careful they don't like being refused, especially by a woman. Maggie finishes. Anyone they're old school in all the worst ways. Name's Hank. By the way, Walter checks his watch. Listen, I'm heading up to Wellington to convoy. If you want safety and numbers, I appreciate. Maggie says with a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes, but I've been handling myself on the road a long time, been dealing with road bullies. Since before these guys had their first motorcycles, fair enough. Walter nods respectfully, but take my number mountains, but I'll be on Channel 7. Accepts the offered business card, tucking it into her jacket pocket. Thanks, I should get. Moving back on the road, Maggie keeps a vigilant eye on her surroundings for the next hour. She sees no sign of the motorcycles, and she begins to think they've lost interest. The terrain becomes more rugged as the highway climbs into higher elevations along shadows across the road, and traffic thins to almost nothing. Rounding a sharp curve, Maggie suddenly spots something in the road ahead, metal objects scattered across her lane that glint in the sunlight. Her training kicks in immediately. She recognizes homemade tire spikes, couched the same crude but effective devices she'd seen in conflict zones overseas with split-second decision. Making hone from years of defensive driving, she manages to swerve but not completely avoid them. A warning alarm sounds in her cab as the tire pressure monitoring system registers punctures in 2 of her 18 tires. The reinforced design prevents immediate deflation, but she knows she can't continue at highway speeds. Maggie carefully steers onto a wide shoulder and brings her massive vehicle to a controlled stop. She reaches for her cell phone. There's no signal. Her satellite phone is showing a weak connection, possibly due to surrounding peaks blocking clear line of sight. Before she can fully assess the damage, the 2 motorcycles appear from a side road ahead, followed by a pickup truck. They park, blocking the road in front of her. Drake and 3 other Warlords members approach her truck, their body language communicating clear intimidation. Maggie reaches under her seat, retrieving a metal baseball bat, a trucker's insurance policy. Before stepping down from the cab, she stands tall beside her, truck bat resting casually against her shoulder. Having some trouble, Drake calls out, feigning concern. Roads around here can be hazardous. Good thing we were in the area to help. Funny coincidence. Maggie responds, her voice steady. I don't recall requesting roadside assistance. Drake's smile doesn't reach his eyes. Think of it as a community service, of course, maintaining these roads, keeping them safe for truckers like yourself. That takes resources. I'm sure the county appreciates your civic engagement. Maggie says DRYY when the biker's a heavy-set man with a shaved head that Drake calls Bull steps closer, examining her damaged tire. Looks like you'll need some help changing this big job for a woman alone. Maggie doesn't move. I've changed more tires than you've had hot dinners. Friend, maybe Drake interjects, but there's a matter of time. Delay like this could make you miss your delivery window. We could have you back on the road in 30 minutes for the right consideration. Call it $1,000 special first-time customer rate. Or another biker adds, a lanky man with prison tattoos on his neck. We could call our buddy at County Dispatch report an unsafe commercial vehicle. That'd be at least a 4-hour wait for inspection. Maggie's mind races, calculating options. She's handled difficult situations before, but these men have her outnumbered in a remote location. This isn't about pride, it's about survival and smart decision-making. I need to check. Cab, don't try anything stupid. Drake warns inside the cab. Maggie reaches for her glove compartment, removing a worn business card. It's not Walter's card she received earlier, but something she's carried for years. She pulls out her satellite phone, which now has a weak but usable signal, and dials the number on the card. The bikers watch wearily from outside. Bull makes a crude comment to the companions, drawing laughter. Drake maintains his cold stare, hand resting near, carries a weapon. The call connects. After 3 rings, Gator's auto shop. A gruff male voice answers. Frank. Maggie says it's Maggie Donovan from Fort Carson. A pause in recognition. Mag's been 4 years since that trucker convention in Dallas. Need to cash in that favor. Gator. Maggie says, keeping her voice calm despite the tension. I'm on Pine Ridge Highway, about 20 miles east of Riverdale. Got some tire trouble and unwelcome company. The Warlords MC. Another pause, longer this time when Frank speaks again. His voice has hardened. They hurt you not yet, just trying to shake me down. How many 5 that I can see stay put, don't escalate. Unless you have time, about 40 minutes out with some friends. Copy that. Maggie says, using the military acknowledgement reflexively. And Mags, these boys picked the wrong trucker to mess with. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time. So if you're enjoyed, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The call ends, and Maggie returns the phone to her pocket. She takes a deep breath, then steps back down from the cab, still holding the bat. Casually, Drake approaches his patients, visibly wearing thin, making arrangements to pay us what we're owed. Just letting my delivery point know I'll be delayed. Maggie says, had to arrange for a replacement driver. Take over. Drake frowns, not expecting this replacement medical supplies. Don't wait. Maggie explains calmly, I may be stuck here, but the delivery will still happen on time. This clearly wasn't in Drake's plan. He'd expected to delay her enough that she'd pay his extortion to meet her deadline. He recovers quickly, though his smile returning cold, and then still leaves you with a problem. Doesn't it? Damaged truck, middle of nowhere tow truck from the nearest town, will cost you more than we're asking, not to mention our inconvenience fee has just gone up. Bull steps closer, towering over Maggie. 2,000 now, lady payment for wasting our time. Maggie adjusts her grip on the bat. Slightly tell you what I've got, about $40 in my wallet. It's yours if you and your friends leave now. A moment of stunned silence. Then Bull laughs. You hear that Drake lady's got jokes. Drake doesn't laugh. His eyes narrow as he studies Maggie more carefully, reassessing. You're not afraid of us. Most people are. I've seen scarier things than men on motorcycles. Maggie says, simply, something in her tone. Back, signaling Bull to do the same. You called someone who was a friend. Maggie says, sheriff's in our pocket. Drake warns, didn't call the sheriff. Drake exchanges glances with his companions, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face for the first time. Check her ID. He orders Bull, let's find out who we're dealing with. You on my license? Maggie asks. It's in my wallet in my back pocket. I'm going to reach for it. Slowly, Bull watches her movements with suspicion as she retrieves her wallet and hands over her commercial driver's license. He squints at it, then passes it to Drake. Margaret Donovan. Drake reads, Colorado license, long way from home is wherever I park. Maggie replied. Drake hands the license back, his expression calculating. We can wait. Whoever you call, they're not coming faster than local deputies responding to an assault call. What assault? Maggie asks. Drake grins maliciously. The one where you attack Bull with that bat. His word against yours. 5 witnesses against 1. Maggie considers her options. She could probably take down one of them with the bat before the other overwhelmed her. She's received combat training, but that was years ago, and these are 5 younger men. Fighting isn't the answer here. 40 minutes. She says instead, that's how long you have to leave before things get complicated for you. Maybe. Drake sneers. For all of us. Maggie counters, my friend isn't coming alone. This gives Drake another moment's pause. He turns to consult with his companions in low voices. Maggie can't hear, which suggests disagreement. Drake seems to be overruling objections. He turns back to Maggie. Here's how this plays out. You give us what's in your wallet now as a down payment. We'll escort you to the nearest ATM for the rest. Then we all part ways. No harm done. Maggie shakes her head. Not happening. Drake's facade of civility drops entirely. You don't seem to understand the situation. There's nobody out here but us. No witnesses, no law. Just you against the Warlords, as if emphasize his point. The tattooed biker pulls out a hunting knife, letting the blade catch the fading sunlight. Last chance to be reasonable. Drake says. Maggie's expression doesn't change, but she shifts her stance slightly, preparing for trouble. I've made my